Hi, I'm Paris, and though it's the middle of winter here in central Texas, it's in the 70s and 80s every day, such weird weather, the flowers are blooming, and I've started wanting to have my sparkling beverages on the rocks. So I decided this was a good time to try out the Ice Genie.
Epic Review Guys.
As seen on TV, Ice Genie not only creates your ice cubes in your freezer, but also gives you a place to store quite a few of them. You can make 40 ice cubes at a time, and it can store 120 of them inside the very same container. Goes for about $20. I picked it up at my local Walmart store. You can find out more about it at the link down below this video. I probably go through 20 to 25 ice cubes a day in my iced teas and green colas. Now that's standard size ice cubes. I think the one that this creates is a little bit smaller. The device itself consists of the lid, the bumpy outer portion, this is where your ice cubes get made, and then the inner portion, this is where a lot of people seem to have issues with this and why, if you check the reviews, they're not so good. So I'm going to see if I can get past those problems that people are having. Okay, all right. Yeah, so there's a seal, that's what was holding it. Down at the bottom there's a seal that catches around this that you have to be sure engages completely when you're making your ice cubes. So following the instructions is important or you won't have satisfactory results. Oh, and I forgot the other piece included. It's tongs for when you want to be fancy and not pick up the ice cubes with your fingers. So have a closer look at what we're working with here. This is the Ice Genie maker. The outside portion of it, you'll get ice cubes forming in each of these, and you can see inside those same locations have the indentations. Goes all the way down to the bottom. Now at the very bottom there are feels like two rings. Yeah, plastic rings. Now it's very important when you take this portion and slide it in that you get the bottom to engage with those rings because they're going to tighten around it and form a seal. So long as you make sure it's all the way to the bottom and engage those seals, you're going to add the water here on this edge. The water goes down, fills up the bumps here, does not leak into the bottom if you've done it correctly, and then it freezes in place. You pull this out, you squeeze it, you get your ice cubes. Time to go out, rinse this out, and make my first batch of ice. So I believe I've got this seated correctly. Now you can see these openings in this upper channel. That's where the water is supposed to be applied. It slides down, fills those little indentations where the cubes will form, and hopefully does not come out into the bottom center. I don't see any water at the bottom. I think I've done it correctly. So it is set. Put the lid on. And it's ready to go in the freezer for 4 to 6 hours. Alright, it's the next day. The Ice Genie is completely frozen. Oh, and the lid is really stuck on there too. Have to loosen it up a little. Yeah, I think it all stayed where it was supposed to, which is right around here. Now the instructions say next to squeeze this in all directions to loosen it up, then to pull the clear plastic piece out. I think it might go better with 2 hands. Crunch it all around the edges again one more time, and then it finally came loose, and once it was loose, it very easily comes out. You can see the ice cubes there on the wall of this, so now I crush it and pop them all out into the center of the container. And there we have it. Not quite as much ice as I was expecting. Let me put it in the bowl. And that's a couple of handfuls of ice cubes. As a size comparison, here's a standard ice cube from the automatic ice maker in the freezer. And here is the little thing that gets created by the Ice Genie. Well, let's get on with making batch number 2. I've looked through here to make sure there are no protruding pieces of ice. So I can slide the clear plastic piece back in. This is where I got to make real sure that it goes all the way to the bottom and has engaged the seal. Okay, now to add more water. So at this point I take the ice from the first batch, pour it into the center here. Put the lid back on. back in the freezer. All right, this is 8 hours later, the second go round of making ice. There's our ice in the center from round 1, and to loosen the ice cubes here, gotta go around squeezing it and lifting that out. Oh, all of the last go round's ice comes with it. I guess some liquid did. Look at that, it looks solid. So some water must have actually leaked past and filled it in, or else some of the ice melted. I suppose some of the ice may have melted. But I've got a solid bottom to this plastic container that shouldn't have a bottom. Well, it slid out in one piece, but where are my cubes? It's become one giant cube. Now I don't know if that's from water leaking from this, or just the fact that I put it back in with room temperature water in the outside edges, and that was enough to cause the original cube to melt and congeal, darn it. Let's take a look in here. No, I see cubes all the way down. So I can't tell what happened there, but it wasn't good. Let me get these cubes out and do one more go round. Well, these look fine. I'm thinking the water did not leak past the clear plastic piece. I think I did set it properly. My guess about that congealing, there's one more cube, is just that putting the room temperature water back in this, and then putting this back in, and then putting the ice in here, the room temperature water caused it to melt enough to form that giant clump of ice. Well, that really defeats the purpose of the whole thing, doesn't it? Well, for this go round, I'm going to keep my ice separately in this bowl and put that in the freezer. And let me get this filled up again for round 3. Okay, back in the freezer for another 8 hours. And for the third go round, let's see how the ice turned out. Okay, looks good. I don't see any sign of any water leaking in there. Do some crunching here. Okay, that came out nice and clean. There we've got our ice cubes ready to be dislodged. Turned out nice, so we should add this to the bowl of ice cubes that I put in the freezer before. Well, there's our original chunk, but now look at this. Because I poured the ice cubes into a room temperature bowl, they melted and now have all stuck to the edges of the bowl. So again, I got a chunk here and I got a chunk here, and this is really the only loose ice cubes that I have. So the Ice Genie does make ice. You can store ice in it, but it does have some issues. I'm not sure if in part it's because the ice cubes are so small, but they very readily tend to melt and glom on to the other ice cubes. That's why with the first batch of ice, putting the ice cubes back into the Ice Genie and then putting the room temperature water around it caused them to melt. And well, I do better understand now the issues people were saying they were having with the Ice Genie. But if you're pressed for space in your freezer, the as seen on TV Ice Genie does create the ice cubes. It did work fine for that. It's just a matter of storing them that seems to be the issue. Find out more about the Ice Genie at the link down below this video. And if you're wondering about the change in set here, I actually just recorded my Valentine gift ideas video. And so I will link to that at the end of this video in case you need to find a good gift suggestion. And I'll see you on the next review.
Epic Review.